Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. This is our last class in this series, class number 6. There's my name, there's my email. Email me in the future if anything comes up, if you have any questions. So, we are talking about preparing with neighbors and preparing with your community. So, those are our two topics for tonight. I love this graphic. I stole it from somewhere in LA. Being prepared begins with hello. We're going to talk a lot about how important neighbors are. Sorry, how important neighbors are in a disaster. So, neighbors are your support system for many disasters. I know most of us rely on, well, a lot of us rely on family and friends that may or may not live very close. Neighbors will become your support system after a disaster. And we'll talk more about why that is. So think about these kinds of disasters. If there's a fire, if you have a house fire and you're standing outside while the firefighters are doing their thing, the person that comes up to you and offers you a blanket to put around your shoulders because you're standing there in your pajamas, that's going to be a neighbor. It's probably not going to be family or friends. It's the middle of the night, they're asleep, they don't know that your house is on fire. So neighbors are super important. If there's a downed power line in your neighborhood and you need to talk to somebody about what to do and keep one another safe, that's neighbors. And then an earthquake, especially. We will all depend on our neighbors in an earthquake. Your normal support person, may not be anywhere close to you. They could be states away. I love this statement. American rugged individualism is a myth, and a toxic myth at that. It is so true. And the more time I spend in the emergency preparedness world, and frankly, as an adult, the more I realize that's true. We are so dependent on one another. And it's really a good thing. If you have good people around you, it lengthens your life, it improves your life. Everything just gets better. And certainly recovering from a disaster is easier if you have a strong network around you, right around where you live. You are the help until help arrives. And why is that? Because there are a lot of people in Seattle, 800,000 plus tourists. So we're close to a million easily. And there's only about 200 first responders on duty at one time in the city of Seattle. You can't predict earthquakes, so we can't put more people on duty. And a lot of those folks do not live here in the city. So they live outside the city. So their ability to get in and spell the first responders that are on duty at the time is very difficult. So they may stay where they are and help out that community because they just can't get to Seattle and help us here in the city. So your neighbors are the help. We are the help until help arrives. Neighbors helping neighbors, that's what this is all about. So I want to share this preparedness pyramid with you. I think it's a very good graphic way to explain the system of preparedness here in Seattle. So this bottom pyramid, it's the biggest one, and it is you and your household, you and your family members. And that's where your water and your food should come from. Any medications that you take on a regular basis, that's where you need to have them. And your emergency toilet, because like we've talked before, everybody has to go to the bathroom. All your basics for living, for surviving, really need to come from preparations you and your household have made. So that's the basis of the pyramid, the biggest level. And then there's what you and your neighbors can do together. Look out for one another, coordinate cooking. Can you imagine cooking after an earthquake where you have no running water, so nobody has any gas to cook? Wouldn't it be easier to make a big pot of soup on somebody's barbecue grill, or just a big cookout? Everybody throw in what vegetables you have and we'll skewer them up and we'll throw them on the grill and we'll all eat together. That sounds so much more reasonable and doable than every household making their own meals. It would be so much easier to cook a massive pot of beans than every single household cooking, just enough for their family. So I really like the idea of coordinating cooking. And then just the ability to share resources. We all don't need an axe or a chainsaw or crowbars or whatever. We can borrow those from one another. So there's a lot you can do with your neighbors. You can get together beforehand and make big purchases. I've always thought this was a good idea. Helping them get water stored away, I think, would be a really good service. You can also turn off gas to prevent fires in your neighborhood, and you can turn off everybody's water. Remember, only turn off the gas if you hear the hissing noise or you smell gas. Otherwise, leave it on. But if there is a gas leak in your neighborhood, on your block, in your building, everybody's gas needs to be turned off at that point. If you're not home, your neighbors can do that for you. And then combine resources and brains. Between a block of people who have sat through this kind of training or at least talked about it or thought about it, you're going to come up with some really good ideas, some really smart things to do. And you'll be able to check one another about, hey, did you remember to turn off your water? More brains is better than one. You can also rely on your neighbors to check on folks that need extra care. Let's say you're off at work, but you've got folks that you left in your household that might need some care when you're not there. That's what neighbors are for. You find the people that are living right around you that you trust and that are home during the day, working from home possibly, and you say, hey, if something happened to me, I have my elderly mother in law living with me, or we have two cats that are really skittish. Would you mind checking on them if there's any kind of disaster? Big loud booms in the area, or fire in the area, lots of ambulances, fire trucks, or heaven forbid, an earthquake. Could you check on them until I get home? That's what neighbors are really good for. You can set up a first aid station. I've seen several blocks that have done that. They got together in somebody's living room. This was pre-COVID, but got together in somebody's living room, and the two nurses on the block raised their hand, and they happened to live close to each other. And so they kind of designated themselves as the first aid station. If you're hurt, come to us. Or if you're hurt, send somebody to us and we will come to you. So just getting to know what the skills are around you, find that person that can cook for a large amount of people and just say, hey, would you be willing to take on this job of cooking for everyone? And in return, we will do things for you. We will clean up your house. We will pick up the glass that's in your driveway or in your grass or whatever. We'll do whatever we can to support you if you do this piece of survival for us. And then maybe there's folks in your block, in your building that are really good with radios. Maybe they're ham radio operators and they can listen to communication that way, or GMRS radios, which is a different type. Maybe it's somebody that can't do a whole lot else, but they can keep a cranked radio powered up and they can listen to the weather stations or Cairo and find out what the city is putting out. You could have somebody whose job is just to try and gather information for the neighborhood. And then obviously cleaning up together would be so much easier, and everyone has skills that will be helpful after a disaster. And it's just fun and interesting and really community building to figure those out ahead of time and kind of talk through some of these ideas. The city of Seattle has volunteers that could come to your living room or meet you all on Zoom and help you work through some of these issues as a neighborhood. So that program is called SNAP, Seattle Neighborhoods Actively Prepare, SNAP. And on your notes for the class, I've given you the link on how to ask for a class like that from the Office of Emergency Management. A little bit further up the preparedness pyramid is the hubs, the emergency communication hubs. This is how Seattle is organized. Every city is going to be a little bit different, but this is how Seattle has chose to do it. So the hubs, they have two missions. They gather and they share information and they match needs and resources. We are social creatures. You've probably heard me say this more than once. After a large earthquake, if we were inside, we smartly got under some kind of furniture so that nothing hit us that's coming off the walls or off the ceiling. You sit tight until the shaking is over with. You move out from underneath that desk or table or whatever, slowly and carefully. Check on yourself, check on everybody in your household, control your utilities, and then we probably will go outside. It's what we just naturally do. We are social creatures. We will go outside, we will look to our neighbors to our left, right, up, down, and we will say, oh my gosh, what was that? How are you okay? I'm okay. What do we need to do? So everybody's heads start spinning. That's what we will do. It's been proven time and time again. So we will naturally gather in open spaces because we will not feel comfortable being in a building. If it was a really strong earthquake, we will not feel comfortable being inside, especially during aftershocks. It will be very jarring to our psyche. The emergency communication hubs take advantage of that natural instinct to gather together and to gather together outside in open spaces. And we have worked with that instinct. So people will naturally gather in parks, in open spaces like community gardens, because those are always open to the sun. Even parking lots are really good for this. Church parking lots, grocery store parking lots, any kind of open space like that will be a really good place to gather. And they're very natural gathering spots, especially parks. Parks, they really welcome people in. So we will naturally gather in these spots. So the city of Seattle has encouraged neighbors, communities to get organized. So on the map to the left, you'll see different kinds of the radio circles. The top one is open, it's a hollow circle, and it just means that there is a natural gathering spot there, but the neighbors are not organized yet. So there's a pea patch or a park or some kind of open space that the city goes, yeah, that's pretty centrally located for that neighborhood. I bet they're going to go to that spot and they're going to gather there. So they've marked it on a map as a potential gathering spot, but nothing's coordinated there. The second type of circle, the one that is filled in, the solid circle, is where neighbors have gotten together and they have gotten organized. And we call those emergency communication hubs. The other ones are hubs. The ones that are organized are emergency communication hubs. So this is what typically we put our gear in after we've gotten organized. There's several different ways you can fund this. The city has been fairly generous with funding these for us. So we gather a lot of supplies to help us get organized and we put them in these boxes. And this is pretty much what they look like. Most of them will fit in the back of a pickup truck. They're very unremarkable. You see them throughout Seattle. Some of them have rakes or baseball field equipment or chalk to mark the lines on a baseball field or whatever. There's lots of different stuff that are stored in these boxes because they do lock. Ours don't look any different. This happens to be the one in my community. They don't look any different, but they obviously don't have rakes in them. And they don't have food or water in them. Very often, when I open the box and show somebody that doesn't know anything about the hub concept, they assume it's going to have food and water in it. Everything in here is equipment that we believe we will need to get organized. So there's a bullhorn, there's caution tape, there are posters and signage and whiteboards, tables and chairs, and there's a canopy in there. There's lots of markers. There's paperwork. We have job descriptions for the different jobs of folks working in the hub. Let me stop now and say that everyone that is involved in the hubs, every single person is a volunteer. None of us are paid by the city. We coordinate very closely with the city, but we are self-organized and self-driven. It keeps us very nimble. We can turn on a dime because we don't have to check in constantly with the city. So we have written our own job descriptions and we have our own paperwork, and we've tried to think of things ahead of time to make the recovery process smooth. So that's what's in the box. Again, the mission of the hub is to gather and share information and to match needs and resources. Two main missions. We get information from neighbors coming up to the hub. After the disaster, we've checked on our families, we've controlled our utilities, we've done as much as we need to do in our own household to then be able to leave our household for a bit and go to this natural gathering spot and put up the hub. So we set up the hub, and then neighbors come and they tell us what's going on. Information like, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a power line down in our community, and it says where it is. Please avoid the area. The city put out a boil water order, which means you have to boil your water for 1 minute, let it cool off before it's safe to drink. And that's just a safety thing. This says that KIRO, the emergency radio broadcasting system, is up and running. So just give people a nudge to listen to that to get more information. And then a pharmacy is open down the street, and the hours that they're open, and you need to take your pill bottle to actually get a refill. So that's the kind of stuff that we want neighbors to tell us what's going on in the community. We send our own volunteers out on recon missions. Hey, I want you to go check on the nursing home. I want you to go check on the local grocery store or the gas station. I want you to go eyeball this bridge and see, if you can see traffic going across it, that kind of stuff. So we do recon missions. We also listen to the radio, and we have ham radio operators that we work with, and we've cultivated relationships with them so that after a disaster, if they don't have another job using their ham radio skills, they will come to us at the hubs and they will help us communicate either with the city or with other hubs. And then also we're listening to officials, and officials are running by if they can to give us information. The fire department knows where we are. Maybe on one of their rounds, they might stop by the hub and we will share information with them. They can tell us what they know and we can tell them what we know. So we gather and share information and then we post it on things like whiteboards so that folks know what's going on. And that sense of walking up to a hub with neighbors, just like you and I, dressed in an orange vest, looking like we know what we're doing. We're starting to gather information. We're putting it up on whiteboards so our neighbors know what's going on. It decreases everyone's stress level. Oh my goodness, somebody looks like they know what they're doing, and maybe I can get some of my questions answered. The hubs are really good for this. This was a setup a long time ago, ham radio operator helping us out. So the other thing we do is we match needs and resources. If you come up to the hub needing something, or you come up to the hub having something to offer, we ask you to fill out paperwork and then we match these pieces of paper and we help neighbors help neighbors. If you have a tarp and there's another family that needs a tarp, we hook you two up. If you have a young baby or you're a young family and you need diapers and someone else has diapers to share, we try and get you guys talking. If you lost a puppy and another family found a puppy, we try and put you together. And we can't do this using phones. Nobody's going to leave us their cell phone number. We're not texting doing this. It's all a paper system. It's very low tech. And then the last example is if you need something done. So you don't need a thing, you need a skill. Maybe we can help you find that skilled person in the neighborhood and hook you two up. So that's what we do. That's how we match needs and resources. The other area in the hub is we have a volunteer area, and it's just trying to figure out what things need to be done, what services folks need, and we try and coordinate volunteers that are coming up to the hub saying, everybody in my family's okay, my house is kind of a mess, but that can wait. Is there anything I can do? Because managing volunteers after a big disaster is a large skill set that you need to be able to put people to work, keep everybody safe, keep them gainfully employed. Everyone has skills. Everyone can do something, whether it's dog sitting or babysitting or cooking or medical skills or organizing, or if you have good handwriting, we're going to need you. Anything like that. There's also an education area in the hub. We have pre-printed large posters. These are the 5 topics we have to try and answer questions that are really common after an earthquake, like what do I do with my gas? What do I do with my water? How do I pee and poo? How long can my fridge go without all the food spoiling in it? All that kind of stuff. We've tried to gather information and put it on posters that are kind of a self-help area. And then we also have gathered a lot of information in a book. We're just calling the education book. And so if you come up to the hub and you have a question and nobody standing around knows the answer, then we will probably send you over to the education officer who can flip through the book, and hopefully we've thought about that question and already written down the answer, because Google's not available after an earthquake. Again, the hub mission: gather and share information, match needs and resources. We organize the volunteers we know are going to show up and want to help, and then we educate before a disaster because we do drills and we show people how the hub works, and we try and get people thinking about some of these issues. So we educate before and then we educate after a disaster as well. I want to encourage you to keep learning. I've given you a couple resources here. These are the Office of Emergency Management's webinars. I postponed last week's class because I wanted to hear the firefighting one. It was good. It was very technical, way more technical than I was hoping for. I really enjoy plain English. Hopefully you had a chance to listen to that one and got something out of it. The one on May 27th was very good. It was a really good overview. And the link I have on your notes, you can actually click that link and you can go listen to that past webinar. And then there's 3 coming up: shelter and feeding, utility restoration, and transportation. I encourage you to contact the Office of Emergency Management and get your block prepared. And I've given you the link on how to do that and how to ask for that. And then I will be teaching another round of classes, probably very similar to this, 6. It might expand to a few more classes. I'm looking at September 8th. And the reason I'm looking that far is A, I want to break, and B, National Night Out is coming. And it basically was canceled last year. And if you don't know, National Night Out is the first Tuesday of every August. It is a chance for neighbors to gather together. It kind of sort of started, I think, from the police department, encouraging neighbors to get together because your neighborhood is safer if you know one another, you know who belongs there. You trade phone numbers so that you can text about, hey, your dome light in your car is on. You might want to check that before you wake up in the morning and have a dead battery. So, encouraging neighbors to get to know one another and possibly talk about crime. So that's how it started. I think this year we really just need a social gathering. I think everybody just needs to get together and breathe and laugh. And that kind of outdoor event where you're just getting together for an hour, hour and a half, maybe a potluck, maybe not, maybe some drinks, maybe not, outside, small groups, very, very safe way to gather. I think we really need that this year. So I would encourage you to talk to people on your block, the people in your apartment building, and if you're not the person to step up and host National Night Out, then find who is and really encourage them to do it. So, my hope is people get together for National Night Out and have a lovely time, but also make a plan to get together in the near future and start preparing together. It is much more fun when you do it with others. They hold you accountable, they give you good ideas, it's very encouraging. You can commiserate about what a pain it is, all that kind of stuff. Much more fun in a group. So get together for National Night Out, but plan on getting together somehow, whether that's training from the Office of Emergency Management or it's attending the classes I do, whatever it is, do something together. The next set of classes in September, I'm going to try and incorporate more information about being in a tower, multi-residential unit kind of thing. August 3rd, first Tuesday of the month. All right, bye-bye.